so much for being on Happy Hour Hustle.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Yeah, so everybody was listening. I already fangirled before we started recording because I finished Renee's book, She Who Wins. It had a profound impact on me. Really, really did. So much so that I'm getting a tattoo on my body. It's not important where. But I wanted to say, like, I think people when I guess this would be, do they classify it as like self-help or motivational or?
I think so, but I
Okay.
feel like it's not quite written the same way.
No, because I wouldn't have, to me, it's a leadership book. And I actually found that interesting because in a lot of books that are either similar to yours or along that same vein, if they're written by men, they're in the leadership section. And a lot of books that women write, say leadership books, they end up in self-help or motivational section. And I thought, well, isn't that kind of the point of this whole damn book? Like, isn't that funny? So I wanted to say that. And then real quick before we go into the questions, since this is Happy Hour Hustle, what is your preferred happy hour drink?
So
a hard one.
The current, right. The current happy hour drink is a hint water, but the preferred one, I mean, I'm gonna have to go with, I feel like an espresso martini might hit the spot right now at that time of day.
It's perfect. It is actually the best time of day right now. Not that we care when you drink, you do it whenever. So I want to start out with a quote and then we'll kind of go into our questions. This one really jumped out at me. In a world that wants women to whisper, I choose to yell. Yeah. Like, just talk to me about that.
This is, none of this is natural. Like none of that is not like, I'm not naturally the person who yells and who wants to be center stage or who just has been outspoken. Like that is the complete opposite of who I've always been. So I think that and I'm in my mid to upper mid 40s now, but you get to this point where you start to like, there's so much life that has been lived and it's pain, it's life, it's love, it's loss, it's all of those things. And then you start to realize, like, if I'm not going to advocate for myself, who else will? And if I really want certain things, or I really want to be respected, or really want to be heard, like I'm the one who has to do that. And I think that in my 20s, I was definitely not comfortable doing that. And even in my 30s, like, it took a really long time to get really comfortable with just speaking what needed to be spoken and not being afraid or being apologetic about it. And that's what it's from. It's like this whole decade of like, wow, imagine what would have happened if I actually started having those hard conversations back when I was married the first time. And there were so many hard conversations that I chose not to have that probably should have happened. And and that's what it's from. It's like, I made all of these mistakes. And I know that there are so many women who live their whole lives making those mistakes and not speaking up. And it's never too late. It's never too late to say, wait a second, I have something to say, and take up space.
So that's like, is that kind of, so you said you're in your 40s, just around, in there someplace. Myself as well. And I'll tell you what, I feel more comfortable in my 40s than I think in any other age I've been. And I don't know if it's just because I'm like, man, I just don't care anymore. Like, but is that kind of like, so you wrote a book, dude, that's so cool. You wrote a book. So were you like, I'm 40 now, I could do anything? Like, where did it come from? I mean, obviously you know a lot of things and you're smart, but like, you wrote a book.
So I've always been a writer, and that's the thing for me that I've always loved doing. And I'm also a litigator. And so while my profession is my livelihood is like speaking and putting on like theatrics and doing all of that, that is so not who I am. I am like the quiet person typing away on the keyboards. That's when I'm going to be my most authentic, most truthful self. So that's always been who I am. And when I actually got this book deal, it was a different book. Like the book that we pitched 3 years before that was not the book that this was. And when I started to actually sit down and write, I realized I was not doing anyone any service if I wrote that kind of surface level book that was originally pitched. I'm like, I need to peel the layers back and like fit it and really be honest and just write the book to myself or like to that one person out there and not worry about how it was going to land. Would it by like, what would people think by talking about stories that I might not have shared? Telling my parents, listen, guys, like you show up in there and, you know, you may not like what you read. And not that it's horrible, but it's just really just being like, this is just me. And it's like the every woman who is just trying to get through life and trying to pay her bills and be a good parent and be a good spouse and all of those things. And it was like, if I just show up on paper that way, then I did my job. And that's what the whole intent was, and beyond nothing else behind it.
Yeah.
Well, and I imagine once it came out and people started reading it, like people were like, you said what I was thinking. Oh my gosh, like somebody finally said it.
It's crazy because I had actually my mother say to me, I felt like you were writing the book to me. And then I had a woman just recently who was in her 70s say, I felt like you were writing the book to me. And then a cousin of mine, a cousin's daughter who's in her early 20s, be like, I feel like you were writing the book to me. And I'm like, that, like for me, I was like, wow, like that to be able to have that reach from generation to generation is incredible. And I think everyone takes something a little different from it, depending on what season you're in.
Yeah. I just have to say on that note, I underline women feel guilty about almost everything. Yes, 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 yes.
We do.
Agreed. We just do. I did that throughout the entire book.
Yeah. I mean, I think you probably have people submit photos, but I was like, this is a book I can't even lend out. Like I go back and I look at it and I doubt it's so funny because I was on a cruise with my husband a couple of weeks ago and I forgot, I was like, I'm going to download this so I can read it on my phone and highlight different things and whatever, because like, I don't know, like when I started reading it even a second time, I got even more out of it because I don't think we always fully retain all the information anyway. I think sometimes you got to do it multiple times. I mean, women are holding a lot in our brains. So, but I was like, I'm getting even more from this. And then I started telling everybody, you need to read this. You absolutely need to read this. So, okay. So the other thing I loved, these are just quotes I pulled out and you're probably like, okay. But so one of our mottos at 834 is find comfort in the uncomfortable. And I literally gasped out loud in your book when it said, when you do it enough, you start to actually get comfortable in the uncomfortable. And I was like, that's it, people. Like, and you're so right. Like, talk a little bit to that.
So, I mean, it's funny because I had something at the end of 2023, a major disruption in my life with my business. And I had some key employees leave and it turned the whole business like upside down. And I had this moment was like, all right, well, what's the next step and what's the next thing? And my husband looked at me at one point. He's like, how have you not like crumbled at this point? I'm like, because there is no choice. I'm like, it's just a thing. In the grand scheme of things, it's fine. And I'm like, and it's just you keep moving. And I'm like, yeah, it sucks. It's hard, but you keep doing it. And so what? And it's like, it's not going to kill you. It's not going to break you. You're just going to keep moving forward and be like, all right, this thing happened. All right, now what? Now let's see what we're made of, you know? And I'm like, what lesson's going to come out of this? And I'm thinking to myself, what story from this situation is going to end up in the next book?
Yeah. Yeah. Which I certainly hope you are writing. We'll just leave it at that. You better be writing another book. So your book is broken up, like, you know, in a formula, which I thought was so cool. I also love the chapter sound bites at the end, because it's like, here's the main points if you were skipping stuff, dummy. So, but okay. So the stop, drop, roll equals win. So stop plus drop plus roll equals win. Will you talk a little bit about that? Like first of all, where'd you come from? Where'd that come from? And then, you know, what does that kind of mean?
So when I was thinking of what I wanted to give people from the book, like I wanted to give them an action item. Like it's great to close a book and be like, oh, I feel so motivated, but I wanted to give them something they could take and apply to anything, any situation they came up against. And as I started to go through, like, what is it that I could be the through line? I thought back to as being a divorce lawyer for over 20 years now. I'm like, what's the thing that I constantly help clients with? And it was like, all right, they come to me, they ask the question, how do you know? And how do you know it's time? And I always bring them through. It didn't have a label at this point. I'm like, I always bring them through this process of like figuring out what it is they actually want and paying attention to whether it's their head or their heart talking. That's the stop. Dropping the excuses that are holding them back. And for so many, it's like, I'm not going to have enough money. I'm going to be alone. The kids aren't going to be okay. And working through that and then rolling into action is taking that leap, moving forward. Because on the other side, no matter how hard it is, no matter how uncertain it is, you're always going to win because you're no longer stuck in this place of stagnation. And so when I was writing the book, I'm like, how can I take that and package it up in something that's really easy to remember? And I was thinking of frameworks, and I've read a lot of books where there's very complex frameworks. I'm like, it has to be easy. It has to be something that everyone knows. And that was what my husband and I were actually talking. We were talking about like lighting your life up and using all these analogies. And then it just hit. I'm like, stop, drop, and roll. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, everyone knows what that means. And I'm just going to refresh that and change it up and make it into something that anyone can bring themselves through. And you know, what's crazy is I hate when I was just going through what I was dealing with in my own business, I had to bring myself through the thing. And I'm like, damn it, I hate when like my own words are getting thrown back at me, but I'm like, I had to do the same exact thing. And I'm like, I know exactly where I'm stuck. I'm like, I know that point. So it's like, it's not, we're all a progress. We're all in different seasons. And it's like, there isn't, I'm the writer behind it, but I'm certainly not the perfectionist behind it. Like I'm still learning and growing and evolving and failing and, you know, doing all of that stuff along with everyone else.
Yeah. And I did want to ask too, of the stop, drop, and roll process, obviously you get people at different phases of this coming to you. Which is the hardest for people to do, in your opinion? Or is it different for everyone?
I think it's the middle one. I think it's the excuses, because a lot of people will identify exactly what they know that they want, and they'll be able to say, this is the thing that I know I need or want, and I know that my heart is calling me to this, but it's those excuses that hold them back. And you hear it over and over again, like in anything in life, like I'll do it later. I'll do it when I lose the 10 pounds. I'll do it when I have more money. I'll do it when, you know, the kids are older, like whatever it is, like that's what holds people back from actually taking action and moving the needle in their life.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to ask about too is just the line that you said, perfection is the enemy of your journey. I mean, that's always kind of spoke to me. I feel like I've always been a perfectionist. It's always made me miserable in my life. I totally agree with this, but at what point and how do you tell the difference between you trying to make yourself better and reach your full potential, and then when you're just being a perfectionist and it's holding you back?
So, and I feel like perfectionism is something that women suffer from more so than men, because men don't care. Like they're just going to show up and they're going to do it messy and be like, I was perfect, you know,
it was great.
Right. We're the ones who have to, like, where does it even come from? Like, and I think like going back to my childhood, it was like, I wanted the perfect grades and I wanted the perfect, like all of the perfect life mapped out for me based on what someone or society told me I should have. And then I think letting go of perfection comes from constantly putting yourself on the line and getting rejected and getting the no's. And like, because that's the opposite of perfection. It's like recognizing like, all right, I'm going to go for the job that I may never get. And I may get all of the rejections but I'm going to do it anyway. And that means I wasn't perfect in that thing that I'm trying to do. And it's just the more that you do that, the more that the perfectionism just rolls off you. And you're like, all right, so this thing wasn't meant for me. What's the next thing until I land on something that maybe I'm okay at, you know, because what is perfection? Like, we don't look at our friends and be like, well, your hair isn't perfect today, or you're not. We don't ever do that. We accept it in the people we love. They're messy imperfection, but we don't accept it in ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. Well, and I've heard the statistic that like women feel before they apply for a job, feel like they have to like fit 100% of their like requirements and like, you know, fulfill their job responsibilities or whatever. And men are just like, I'll do it. And if that ain't the truth. So I think I've said ain't like 3 times in this and I just can't stop. So, but it's true. Cause I think, you know, we judge ourselves on a completely different scale than men judge themselves. And quite frankly, the world has been a lot easier for men. So, I think, this is almost your guide. Well, you said it, drop the good girl. This is your guide to like moving past that. And you talk about embracing rejection in here. How did you do it? Like, how are you like, okay, I'm embracing this. But it's okay.
I wish it was just a flip a switch, because in the story that I use is the number of rejections I got in order to get this book actually published. And I decided I wanted to write this book. I wanted to traditionally publish it and not self-publish it. And in my head, it was just going to go down this path. And as I started looking for literary agents, I got 113 rejections from literary agents before I had my first yes. And the first, I don't know, 20, 25, it was like a gut punch. And it was like, well, maybe I'm not meant to do this. Maybe I'm not meant to be a writer. Maybe I suck at writing, And then it gets to the point where it's just like, well, it's just another one. And you remove the emotion from it. And then you get the win. I was like, all right, I have the agent. Now we're going to get the book deal. And I'm like, this is going to happen in like a couple weeks. And I can't wait. Like, I pictured my lake house writing retreat. I had it like all mapped out, and that did not go down that way. And it took 3 years to get the book deal. And then when those rejections started rolling in, and we had so many close calls that looked so promising. And when the rejection came in after, I was heartbroken from it. And it was like, all right, well, that wasn't meant for me. That's not the best publisher for me. And it's just, you want something so bad, you just keep going. And I think there's times where I felt so defeated from it. And then there was times that I was like, you know what? You're not going to tell me that my book isn't going to have an audience. I mean, I heard that so many times. It's too general. You're not going to have an audience, and there's too many, it's a saturated market. And I was just like, you're not going to tell me that there aren't women out there who want to hear from someone who's not a celebrity, or someone who's just a regular person. And it's just like that had more purpose than any of the no's.
Yeah, I think I think it really resonated with me because, the small business perspective too. Like, you're a small business owner, and my God, is that lonely and terrifying and scary. And like, people say to me now, like, knowing now what knowing now what like, would you go back and do it all again? And I'm like, I was in my 20s. I was so stupid. That's the best thing I can say about my 20s, is that I just did it. Cause I didn't, you just are like, you're idyllic, and you think like nothing can go wrong because you're 20. And so I don't know, I think I've become more of a cynic over the years. I think, what I've embraced in my 40s, and what I hear you saying is like, I'm going to do things differently, and I really don't care if you like it or not. And, that's the entire book is full of that. I hope like our listeners will take that away. Like, we're actually going to we're going to take some of your books, and we're going to do like a giveaway. Cause this had such a big impact on me. I'm like, I know there are other women that need to hear this, and we don't take care of ourselves first. We had an employee right now. She is pregnant. We adore her, but she is putting that life mask on that face mask, or, oxygen on everyone else and not herself. And she's suffering for it. And, we always do that as women. And so I knew I was going to fangirl a little bit here. So, I apologize.
No, it's awesome to hear that though, because it is, even a small business owner is lonely, being a writer is lonely. You just don't know like where it's going to land. And you have like a leap of faith in all of it, that you're going to find your people, you're going to find your customers, you're going to find your readers, like, and you're just having that faith, and that it's going to go where it's supposed to. And that's really hard for like, I'm not a control freak. I just like things the way I like them. Call it what you want. But for someone who wants things to roll out exactly in a well-planned way, that's really hard to do. And just to release it. And I mean, that's a big part of the last part of the book too, is just releasing and trusting that everything's going to go exactly the way it's supposed to. And even like this season I'm in, or season I'm just moving through, it's like having that faith of being like, you know what, this is really hard right now.
Yeah.
And it's requiring a different level of attention that I have and focus and hustle. But it's a season, and it's like everything is working out for me. It all had to happen this way. Like everything had to fall apart so it could be rebuilt. And it's like, really, when you really believe that, you start to recognize that it's all a gift. And it's like, you can't be a victim when you see, when you're taking everything in as a gift in order to get you to that next level.
No,
it's interesting because good comes out of bad. And like, I've always joked that like God has to hit me over the head for me to like to get a message. And sometimes that's very awful things happening in my life. And I'm like, oh, I see the lesson now, and I think women tend to be like that too. I think we just like, and we are, I'm going to say it, we're so much stronger than men, and we just power through. We're like, is this the worst thing that's ever happened? Yes. Will I crawl it? Will I roll into a ball on the floor? No, because I got to do what I got to do. So
yeah.
I want to say this quote, and then I want you to leave everybody with parting words. Because I think it really it kind of summarizes what we just talked about. A life lived without struggle, adversity, or pain is one that is also without joy, happiness, and fulfillment.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about that, like who just wants a flatlined life? It's like the good stuff are the highs that we have and the joy and all of the things we get to celebrate. And you can't have those highs without also having those moments where there's struggle and there's hardship. Like if you're not putting yourself on the line to be rejected and have the no's, then you're never going to experience that yes, or that thing that you get to celebrate, or that accomplishment. And if you're never risking anything, then what are we doing? Like I always say that when I get to the end of my life, I want to look back and be like, well, I went for everything, and some of it worked out and some of it didn't. But I don't want to ever look back and be like, I wish I could have done this. I wish I went for it. I wish I like got over this thing that terrified me. Like I wish, and it's like, no, I want to know and be like, yeah, I tried it all. And it didn't always, like, I didn't do it well. And it didn't always work out, but at least I know I tried. And that's the way I want to make decisions in my life, and not just sleepwalk through it. It's too short. It goes by fast.
No, absolutely.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Renee, for being on the Happy Hour Hustle. This was incredible. We are going to also do kind of a blog follow-up as well. So, so everybody who's, listen for, or, look for that. And we're also going to do a giveaway because, more people should be reading this book because it really is life-changing. And then you're just fantastic.
Thank you, ladies, for having me. When you popped in my inbox, I was like, hell yes, let's do that. But I can't wait to see your tattoo. You're gonna have to.
Yes. To fill everybody in on this.
Yeah, I gotta say what it is now.
Yeah, there's a chapter in She Who Wins that I was sobbing at, and of course, it had Tig, your dog, and I had been going back and forth because for those who listen know I have way too many rescue dogs, and you lose them over the years, and it's awful and horrible. And I kept thinking, what is it I can do to commemorate them or like remember them, and I didn't want some cheesy paw tattoo. So there's a quote in the book that is in the chapter about Tig that says, love fiercely and without regret, then love again. And I think that's the gift that they gave me, is every time I love them with everything I had, and then, you lose them, but the gift is you get to love again and you get to rescue another. And so this really just like, and when you ended it with good boy, Tig, and I was like, stop, like just crying. My husband's like, what is wrong with you? Should I bring you to the hospital? This never happens. Like, and I was like, yes, actually you should.
Listen, that was the hardest chapter to write. It wasn't even supposed to be part of the book, and it was happening as I was writing the book, and I had to figure out how to make it. I'm like, I don't know where this chapter fits, but it belongs in there. And I just sobbed as I was writing it. It was the hardest.
Yeah. Hopefully it was cathartic, because I feel like, and he's there forever. And that's like the coolest thing. And now that tattoo I get will be there forever. So And it's going to be in a good place, everyone. Get your vines out of the gutter. So thank you, Renee.
Not your lower back.
I know, right? Yeah. Why not? Why not? So I hear that's coming back. No, it's going to be barbed wire around my, my arm. Why not? No, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, Happy Hour Hustle with Renee Bauer, author of She Who Wins. And we will see you on the download.